Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cantor Jana Schachter, and I am the Director of Religious Services at Lionsgate CCRC, where I've got to meet Art as well as Evelyn, and I will miss Art dearly, seeing him in the hallways and his presence at our Friday night services in independent living. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything. A time for every experience under heaven. A time for dancing and a time for wailing. A time for birthing and a time for dying. A time for speaking and a time for silence. A time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time, filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with a recitation of psalms and prayers, linking Art's life with a 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. We begin with Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echzor, binot deshe yarbitzini, ame menuchon yenachalini, nafshi yeshovev, yanchini v'magalei tzedek, leman shemo, gam ki elech begeitz hamavet, lo yirara, ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha, Taruch lefanai shulchan, neged sorirai, dishanta v'shem en roshi, kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni, kol yemei chayai, Vishavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. You may join me in reciting the psalm in English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. At the rising sun and at its going down, we remember him. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember him. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember him. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember him. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. As long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember him. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember him. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember him. When we have achievements that are based on his, we remember him. For as long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. Art Levit was born 96 years and 9 days ago on November 30th, 1929. Two events of Art's pre-married life shaped his adulthood. The first was the tragic loss of his mom, Rose, when he was only 8 years old. The second event was the time he spent in college and afterwards hitchhiking the continental United States back when there were only 48 states. Art's children told me he lived the life of a vagabond during his travels across America. He had little to no money and sometimes went days without a proper meal. Despite the difficult living arrangements, Art fell in love with the natural beauty of this country. He became enamored with the national park system, particularly Grand Canyon National Park. He learned that he loved to travel and promised himself that when he had his own family, he would share that passion with them. When reflecting on Art's life after his marriage to his beloved Evelyn, one word kept coming to mind: creator. Art was a rare person who was able to successfully create the life that he envisioned for himself when he was young. Among his greatest creations were his business, his woodwork, and above all else, his family. In 1968, Art created from nothing the Custom Brush Company, which sold specialty industrial brushes. The company stayed in the family until recently, on his 96th birthday. His daughter Robin had been running the business for the past 24 years. However, business was not as important to Art as were his hobbies and passions. Art developed a love of making art out of wood early on in his marriage. One day, he and Evelyn were window shopping in New Hope, and Evelyn saw a piece that she loved, but they couldn't afford. Art, with his signature can-do attitude, said, "I can just make that for you." And thus his love of woodworking began. Art's work reflected his love of birds and nature in general. However, one of Evelyn's favorite carvings are a set of little men that she calls her klezmer band. When he was making his creations, Art would say that the wood spoke to him. Art created his family with intention and mindfulness in much the same way that he carved wood. In woodworking, he would take a piece of dead tree, to put it bluntly, and made it into a beautiful piece of artwork made with love. Similarly, He took a childhood that had been tarnished with love and loss and sadness, and from it created his own family with love. He was determined to give his own kids the childhood he did not experience. He knew how important it was to have a loving marriage, healthy relationships with your children, as well as the power of sibling relationships from his beloved older sister Sally, who was the stabilizing force of his youth and who unfortunately passed away when she was in her early 40s. Art was able to create the family he envisioned because he treated each of his children as the individuals that they are. He empowered them to forge their own paths and was accepting of the uniqueness of each child. He was also able to mold the family he envisioned because he had a really supportive wife. After graduating from Temple University, Art served in Korea, thankfully returning home unscathed. Just 3 days after his service ended, Art met the love of his life, Evelyn, or Ev, when a friend introduced them. Evelyn knew after their first date they would spend the rest of their lives together, and they were happily married for 70 years. I would like to read you some words that Evelyn wrote about her husband. Art enjoyed life. Life is to live. Always family first and then friends. Art loved with all his being. He embraced marriage with love, understanding, and honesty. There was nothing more beautiful than being a daddy, and he fit into the role of dad, pop, and grandp. That never stopped, even as they grew into adults, never too busy to stop and listen, help with the kids' science projects, or answer a question. He helped me grow and grow up. He told me and the children and the nieces and nephews, as well as the kids that stopped over our house to raid the refrigerator, if you set your mind to it and work at it, it will happen. This was not a negative man, I can honestly say. Never. Together, we enjoyed music, art, and travel. But, and there was sometimes a but in living, he was frightened over democracy's demise, human beings being mistreated and unfairness, believing always strongly in peace, justice, and love, no matter the order. I think people going hungry bothered him more than anything else because it was continuous with no end in sight. I was and am so lucky to be surrounded with what we shared and what he gave me. He was never too tired or too busy to explain, to hold my hand, or to encourage. Always saying, "Why not? Try it." I always admired that Art could foresee what was needed or what the children needed before they asked. Art provided all he knew with positiveness, looking up rather down, being honest with himself and others. I was and still am the luckiest because I was first. Walk with me, the best is yet to be. Art is mourned by his wife Evelyn, by his children Robin and Ron, Larry and Anna, Stu and Tracy's daughters Allison and Linda, and his grandchildren Stephen, Brian, Xander and Victoria, Ben, Kobe, Jono, Raquel, and Isa. May his memory be a blessing for you all. I would now like to welcome up Art's children, Robin, Larry, and Stu. You changed the order? Okay. Okay, so I'd like to invite Art's daughter-in-law, Anna, up to say a few words.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for being here. I believe that my father-in-law would be quite pleased. I'm not loud enough. According to my children, I'm loud enough. Okay. My name is Anna Levit. I'm Larry's wife, and it is a true honor to share a little bit about art today. Gramp, as he was called by his grandchildren, was one of the nicest people I have had the pleasure to call family. He was kind, generous, and loving, a devoted husband to his bride, Evelyn, and attentive father to Robin, Larry, and Stu. And an adoring grandfather to Stephen, Brian, Xander, Ben, Kobe, Raquel, Jono, Raquel, and Isa. From the first time that I met Art, I felt welcome and accepted. For 33 years, he was my birthday twin, who would always answer any of my phone calls with, good day, Mrs. Levitt. Gramp loved with every fiber of his being. He wove himself into all of our hearts, where he will stay forever. He was so proud of his family. He delighted in hearing about what each of his grandchildren were up to at all times, and was so proud of them. During many of our conversations, whenever speaking about himself, Art would always say, "I'm a very lucky man." Art was sensitive, and he lived with an open heart. He loved to travel. He appreciated good music. He loved good food and a good bottle of scotch. He was a true artist who created an incredible number of wood carvings that brought his love of nature to life. You're going to hear that a lot today. He cared about Israel, the United States, and the world. And like many of us, he was quite disappointed what is happening right now. There were many occasions when he took the time to pen letters which he sent to various politicians or local newspapers. He did that because he cared and because he believed that speaking up mattered. Today we say goodbye to Gramp. And I ask that each and every one of you who were touched by him, even in the smallest of ways, to honor his memory with acts of kindness, whether taking the time to really listen to one another, feeding the hungry, planting a tree, volunteering your time in a hospital, as Gramp did at the VA hospital, or at any local shelter, giving tzedakah to your favorite charity, or even feeding your own creative side. All of these things would be a wonderful way to celebrate the life of Arthur Levitt. I know that each time I will breathe in my father-in-law's memory, I will do my best to breathe out kindness, and I'm sure that he would like that. I'd like to leave you with a short poem by Robert Burns. An honest man here lies at rest, as ere God with his image blessed. The friend of man, the friend of truth, the friend of age and guide of youth. Few hearts like his with virtue warmed, few heads with knowledge so informed. If there's another world, he lives in bliss. If there is not, he made the best of this. Thank you.
So I met Art probably 6 to 8 months before I married Robin, which was 40 years ago. Unbelievable. And I'll never forget the advice he gave me on that day, very fatherly advice, resonated with me. He said, "Be good to my daughter or I will kill you." So, a couple other things I learned over those 40 years was, well, he loved his food, right? Particularly meat, bakery. He could tell you where every bakery was in this country, and he would recommend what you should try if you stop by. Now, he also loved his scotch, called Hooch, and he loved his company that he started. He loved his country, he loved his travels, and he loved his woodworking, but most of all, he saved his most love for his family and friends. Miss you already, Art.
Robin just said if you're able to, go. And it's sort of like, well, good luck with that. It's kind of hard to follow some style and grace, both of you. I think maybe just read or try and read instead. But after our dad died, when we talked with the family, Mom had commented that she hoped us kids would talk about Dad's love of wood and love of traveling. Things that she felt were important to him beyond the obvious love of family and friends. The first thing that came to heart surprised me to be a parallel to his love of wood and carving, which I really hadn't thought about until I started writing this, but I'll give away the ending, which most of us know here. And the dad had an art, maybe pun intended, at bringing out something wonderful and native, and sometimes hidden in people and in wood. Of those of us who've seen his woodwork, of which there are quite a lot, and I think most of us in the room hopefully have been graced by that, he carved wood in the same way to bring something wonderful to the wood's natural being. Maybe it's grain, maybe it's shape, maybe both. Birds, trees, cattails, whales, more trees, whimsical lines, and dancing musicians. He did this with people too, bringing out in them things that sometimes they didn't see, something that would make them feel special. We were definitely special to him. The summer of my junior year in college, I got the idea that somehow I'd bike from Oregon to New Jersey. I wanted to go from coast to coast. Weeks before the start, I got a letter from him, and in it was an envelope with another letter saying, "Don't open until the 3rd or 4th day of this trip." And I shoved it in my bag and quite honestly forgot about it. You can probably see this is going to go downhill when I say the first day of my bike trip took me from Oregon over too many miles and too much climbing to a mountain pass where I was going to be camping for the night. And unknown to me, there was a youth camp atop, which gratefully had a youth camp there. It was a Christian youth camp. And there was an empty bunkhouse, and a very kind priest, the only person who was there other than me, said I could stay there, probably out of sympathy, because I got there well after dark. It was blowing sideways snow, and I was pretty down. I was demoralized, called my folks, talked to my mom and dad for a little bit, and Dad listened to my exhaustion, and he ignored what he said. He said, "Open the letter." And at the time didn't instruct me that he'd ignored it, but he thought this was going to take, a few days to get to, and it only took one. The gist of the letter is that by this time in my trip, I'm feeling sore and alone, doubting myself, doubting I could do what I wanted to do. And he said, this is one of the most important lessons you're going to get in life, among many, and that is a person can learn that you can do what you want, that by believing in yourself and persevering, you could be cold and alone and tired and sore and do anything. You could do anything you wanted. He also stressed that my dreams were his and Mom's dreams for me, no matter what those dreams may be, including if you thought they were kind of goofy. Our dreams were their dreams. His words have been a foundation of many things through my life. I believe his belief in me and sharing in the support in my dreams is something he did with everybody he encountered in one way, shape, or form. He was masterful at making us feel the possible. Maybe overcoming what seems impossible and reaching for it. He did this with wood, bringing out perhaps hidden and innate folds and shapes in the knots of a tree. He celebrated and helped us celebrate some of the wonderful things in ourselves and in our world. He saw them all and helped us see them. It is something that I think drew many of us to him. I'd like to say all, but don't know. There's lots of reasons to be drawn to him. Why so many people really see him as something special. And especially why many people identified with him as a parent figure. It was always amazing growing up how many sisters, brothers we had by people who said, oh, your dad is my dad, or called him everything but dad. And that was important. And that's what brought us here today. Remember him. Let's celebrate him. Thank you, Pop. It's hard to see him in a box, but he loved the wood. Thank you.
Yeah. Our dad was an extraordinary husband, dad, grand, uncle, cousin, friend, and human being. He exemplified love, kindness, grace, respect, and honesty. And that's only the beginning of the list. His support was unwavering for anything we wanted. Our dreams were his dreams. I was luckiest to be his daughter. He didn't teach by words. He lived the example he wanted to instill in us. To be standing here at 69 3/4 and have both parents at that age is amazing and a blessing in and of itself. It gives me peace and comfort knowing that Dad knew how much he was loved, not only by Mom and us, but all of his grandchildren. And in turn, we knew how much he loved us. Dad had a very special relationship with each of his grandchildren. It was filled with love and affection in both ways. It was a wonder to witness. I told a story at Mom and Dad's 50th wedding anniversary, which was 20 years ago. How Mom and Dad came to each of us separately and said despite loving us all and trying to be fair, did we ever feel that there was a favorite child? We all said yes and picked ourselves as the favored one. There is no bigger tribute to them as parents than that. Dad, we all promised you we'd be okay, and we will, despite desperately missing you and with broken hearts. We also promise you that we take care of each other, and we will, because we were taught not to make promises we can't keep. And also because, after all, we are our Father's children.
Thank you, Dad, for loving us so deeply.
Dad was born at the tail end of what was coined the greatest generation. Shaped by America's world wars and Great Depression, it is fitting that Dad, as his generation's, at part of his generation's hallmark, which was that of duty, resilience, and sacrifice. When I was a kid, I spent some time with Dad next to what seemed like a massive workbench. Dad was a tinkerer. He even tried his hand at a few inventions. If there wasn't a part, he made it himself. That massive workbench was magical to me. It was stuffed with coffee cans and jars full of nuts and bolts, pieces of wire, loose pieces of metal, devices that did things and made sounds when cranked. Under the bench top was a huge drawer stuffed with tools. Little did I know then, but Dad was able to reach in and pull out more than tools and creative impulses from his workbench. Somehow, he had a knack for finding just the right words of wisdom in there also. On countless occasions, he listened to me, or saw my face, or sized up the situation. Some of you here may have benefited similarly from his counsel. Sometimes Dad's advice was expressed in the form of what my dear friend Rich Ellis calls artisms. And I'd like to share a few. Mankind's greatest invention is the pencil. And mankind's second greatest invention is the eraser. The translation from Dad, it's okay to change your mind. Another is, which he had to use a lot with me, was fabric can only be stretched so far before it rips. Translation, don't let yourself be pushed too far. Know your limits. And one of my favorites, when you look in the mirror, like who you see. Translation, be the person you want to be. Be kind to yourself. Accept yourself. Another thing Dad had in his toolkit besides tools and wisdom was a lot of love. In fact, Dad taught me something that Einstein himself would be unable to convey. Unlike energy and matter, there is no conservation of love, nor should there be. It does not take energy to love, and our ability to love is limitless. And Dad taught me that. One of my children, upon learning that our family would be growing again, asked me, "Will there be enough?" At first I thought they were concerned about food or toys or money, but I realized the question really was, would there be enough of Anna and me? Would there be enough love? And I knew there would be enough. So thank you, Dad. I decided I wanted to read one other thing. It's something that I wrote to Dad around the time of his 90th birthday, and I think it's apropos today. Your roots buried deep have a wisdom of their own, still exploring, seeking, and knowing your origins. Your trunk is weathered strong, its bark thick and resilient, yet porous to quiet whispers. Your branches arch skyward with the imperative of your heart, flexing in a storm, yet knowing that each of us can only reach so far. In these years, you have shed tears, both of sadness and joy, rivaling the dew on your leaves. Graceful and humble, you abide by nature's laws, allowing your leaves to transform and fall, timing their return to the promise of each year's rebirth. And once again, with full foliage, your canopy envelops us all.
Burial will follow this service at Mount Sharon Cemetery in Springfield, PA. You are then welcome to Robin and Ron's house in Cherry Hill for Shiva. Minyan will be tonight at 5 p.m., and Shiva will also be observed at Robin and Ron's home on Wednesday and Thursday. Minyan will be at 7 o'clock on those days. And Shiva will be observed at Larry and Anna's home on Saturday evening. I ask that you rise as you are able for El Malei Rachamim, the prayer over the soul of the deceased. El Malei Rachamim, Shachim Bamramim, Amsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'malut Kedoshim U'Torim Kezohar Rakia, Mazirim and Nishmat Asher Ben Label Halevi Shehalach Le'olamo Began Eden Menuchato Ana Barachamim Astirehu Beseter Kenafecha Leolamim Utzror Bitzror HaChaim En Ishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'yanuach V'shalom Amishkavo V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Art Levit, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. All right. You may be seated.